Hello, I am Hule David. On the news today,
le fardeau du frère Théodore pendant ce QMPJ était de communiquer aux dirigeants des chambres de prière et des maisons de prière de connaître la volonté de Dieu par rapport au fardeau de la chambre qu'il porte ou au fardeau de la maison de prière qu'il porte.
ministry assistants carry out resolutions taken during their September retreat. The church in Bolivia organizes her very first prayer siege of 24 hours. Those were the headlines. Stand by for the news in full. The World Conquest Prayer and Fasting Center is forging on with its goal to sustain Pastor Theodore Andose and the entire CMFI community through prayer. It is to this effect that they organized their 35th prayer siege of the year. Details of the siege with Bida Gabriel.
The 35th prayer siege organized by the World Conquest Prayer and Fasting Center took place in Koume from 12 to 13 October 2021. The 24-hour battle gathered saints from Cameroon, Central African Republic and France around two major burdens, namely prayer for Brother Theodore, leader of Christian Missionary Fellowship International, and prayer for the upcoming 40-day prayer and fasting crusade. Sister Esther and her co-workers lifted Brother Theodore to God in prayer, pleading for promotion in quality spiritual leadership as well as the gift of a new body. They further covered the upcoming 40-day fast and prayer crusade, begging God for massive participation of saints, the tangible presence of God, individual identification with the goal of the fast, radical transformations, and the protection of leaders and saints throughout this period. Besides these major burdens, they also prayed for the goal of Phase 3, cried out to God for the impact of the recent World University of Prayer and Fasting course for leaders of prayer rooms and prayer houses, and also interceded fervently for God to raise and give Brother Theodore and the leaders of our work the critical ministers needed for the accomplishment of our goal. For RTVC, I am Bida Gabriel.
Leaders of prayer rooms and prayer houses in Cameroon and abroad recently converged in Dumbi for a course on prayer at the World University of Prayer and Fasting. Albert Tang followed the event and now reports.
Brother Theodore's burden for this cause was to communicate to the leaders of prayer rooms and prayer houses the need to know the will of God concerning the burden of the prayer room or the prayer house they carry.
Chambre qu'il porte ou au fardeau de la maison de prière qu'il porte. Le frère Théodore nous a enseigné que
he specifically taught us that before praying, you must have knowledge of yourself, knowledge of the church you are praying for, and knowledge of the burden you are carrying. He also said that the fastest way to know somebody is to pray for that person. As you pray for that person, God speaks to you about him or her. Personally, at first, when I had a problem with somebody, I would want to address the person directly, but now I have understood that I have to first pray for the person. I have thus decided not to handle any problem with man first, but with God.
Sister Comfort Domatop, coordinator of the Ministry to Children in the headquarters Spiritual Province, recently organized a follow-up meeting for Profile Children. The meeting took place in Koume, Betwa. More details in the following report.
The Ministry to Children at the Headquarters Church under Sister Comfort Domatop's leadership held a meeting on Saturday, 9th October 2021 at the headquarters premises. The goal was to evaluate the progress made by the Profile Children after their special World University of Prayer and Fasting session that took place in Dumbi between the end of July and the 18th of August. The accounts of their progress given by some children and the ministers to children was very encouraging. Emphasis was laid on the fact that ministers should follow up these young ones closely in collaboration with their parents, considering the fact that they are expected to live the normal Christian life, following the 16 elements of the Betwa message, in addition to the growth they must know in their areas of distinction. This encounter assembled 41 participants, both ministers and children, from different localities and quarters in Betwa, Baturi, and Belabo. For RTVC, I'm Domato Priska.
The provincial leader of Yaoundé, during their joint service, announced the objectives of the church in Yaoundé for phase 3 of our work. He equally outlined the strategies to accomplishing these goals. Sabrai Nanji was among the participants and now reports.
The recent joint service held by the Christian Missionary Fellowship International Church in Yaoundé gathered thousands of believers from various centers in Yaoundé and its outskirts in the Tukebe Hall, which was full to capacity for the occasion. Taking the floor after intense moments of praise, thanksgiving and worship, Brother Jacques Yugang, leader of the Yaoundé Spiritual Province, spelled out the goal of the church in Yaoundé for phase 3.
500,000 believers se réunissant dans 10 000 assemblées, meeting in 10,000 house churches, dirigés par 10 000 faiseurs de disciples, led by 10,000 disciple makers. Voilà le but qui est devant nous. That's what we have ahead of us. Hallelujah.
He disclosed that the first stage will lay emphasis on raising and training 10,000 leaders by the end of 2022. Practically, he said, it will consist in a disciple-making chain starting from 11 coordinators appointed so far.
Donc, toute l'église va s'organiser autour de ces gens-ci. The whole church will organize itself around these people you have in front of you. Moi compris. And then both of us here included.
Brother Jacques Yugang further announced that, starting January next year, joint services will be held in shifts, morning and afternoon.
Dimanche de décembre n'était pas le 25 décembre. If the last Sunday of December were not the 25th, nous aurions eu 2 services dimanche le 25. Would have had 2 services on the 25th of December. À partir de 2022, from 2022, tous les services communs de l'église, all joint services of the church, en 2 services le dimanche.
All praises be given to the Lord of Harvest and Growth. For RTVC, I am Sabrina Nanji.
Some ministry assistants are already carrying out the resolutions they took during their September retreat. This is the case of Pastor Bosom Koume, missionary to Benin.
In pursuit of his personal resolutions taken at the ministry assistance retreat last September in Koume, Pastor Koume Bosom, missionary number 1 to Benin, held a series of meetings with the leaders and saints in Benin. The first meeting, which held at Kokotome on the 3rd of October 2021, gathered leaders from the 3 regions and had 3 main phases. The first phase was mainly an account of the national leaders' trip to Cameroon, as well as a review of the last leaders' meeting. During this meeting, Pastor Koume disclosed their commitment to cooperate fully with Brother Theodore henceforth.
We have decided in a radical and revolutionary way to work with Brother Theodore and to do everything that he will ask us to do.
In the second and third phases, he led the brethren to work out the organization of the church in Benin. A major resolution was the creation of a committee to work on the re-establishment of our work in Benin and all the instruments thereof. In this same light, Pastor Koume visited the church in Kufo on the occasion of the joint service organized there on the 10th of October 2021. After prayers, thanksgiving and praises, he stated anew his commitment to fully cooperate with Brother Theodore.
Commencez par fonctionner ici au Bénin dans tous les départements en mode Koume.
We will start working here in Benin following the model of Koume in all the departments with the ZTF code in ZAC attitude. We have decided here in Benin to follow exactly what is happening in Koume in Cameroon. We don't want to operate any longer under Siboleth. We rather want to operate under Shiboleth, that is, resembling Brother Theodore in everything that is currently accomplishing in phase 3.
Ressembler réellement au frère Théodore dans tout ce qu'il est en train d'accomplir actuellement au niveau de la phase 3.
He further encouraged the saints at Koume to take advantage of open doors with the ministry fast to preach the gospel and plant churches in localities where CMFI is not yet present. For RTVC, Theodore Domato.
The church in Bolivia organized her first 24-hour prayer siege. The aim of the siege was to pray for Pastor Theodore Andose and for the work in their nation. Lydia Domatop in this report.
The Christian Missionary Fellowship International Church in Bolivia held a 24-hour prayer siege in Santa Cruz from 24th to 25th September 2021. This first 24-hour siege followed 8 other monthly sieges of between 8 to 12 hours organized by the missionary couple Marina and Jean de Dieu Nietzsche. The siege started with preliminaries, thanksgiving and proclamations under the leadership of Pastor Jean de Dieu Nietzsche, missionary number 1 to Bolivia. He carried on with a series of sharing on prayer-related topics including the definition of a prayer siege from Ezekiel chapter 4 from verses 1 to 6, an outline of 4 levels of praying beginning from the Lord's Prayer, which is level 1, to the 4th level, which is spiritual warfare. Ingredients of the prayer mix like faith, sanctification, and prayer in tongues. He ended by leading his young recruits to pray for Brother Theodore. Taking over, Sister Marina Nietzsche, missionary number 2, led the brethren to pray for the birthing of souls and also for the 1,400 people reached with the gospel during the last 3 crusades for young converts follow-up, organized by the church since May 2021. The siege ended with prayer for personal needs, penetration of new grounds, and protection. For RTVC Koume, Lydia Domatop.
That report from Bolivia brings us to the end of this newscast. But before we leave you, we seize this opportunity to remind our televiewers of the annual 40-day fast of the Christian Missionary Fellowship International. The fast will run from October 18th to November 26th. The fast will also be accompanied by a prayer crusade which will be streamed live on all our online platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our package for you this week. See you next time. May God bless you and keep you till then. Bye-bye.